The trial of Michael Slager. This is, to me, just absolutely bizarre. Just absolutely bizarre. And, I've been kind of biting my tongue here for the last couple of days as the trial week, I guess, as the trial has gone on, expecting a guilty verdict. And, thinking, okay, this will be a starting point. But they couldn't even agree on manslaughter, on second-degree murder. And, I mean, this is a guy who shot somebody in the back, starting at 17 feet away, running away. Final shot was fired at 50 feet away. And then he went over and planted a taser near the body. And while he's doing that, he's calling it in. This is all on videotape. And this guy testified that his brain was like spaghetti. He was in fear for his life. And at least one juror bought that. Now, I don't believe that juror bought that. I believe that juror said, I ain't sending no cop to jail. In fact, I shouldn't use that kind of language that, sounds like the kind of poor white trash language, which is what I meant it to sound like. And it just, but you get my point. There are, sadly, enough Americans who are completely deferential to authority figures. It's probably the vast majority of Fox News watchers and right-wing hate radio listeners, for example, that they'll never convict a cop of anything, even when you got videotape of him shooting somebody running away from him. I thought by definition, if you shot somebody running away from you in the back, you couldn't claim self-defense. And that was Slager's defense, essentially. I was afraid for my life. You're afraid for your life and he's running away from you? And why did you have to shoot, 5 more bullets after the first one? As I recall, it was 6. Just empty your gun into this guy? Really? This is amazing. So if you have any thoughts on this, we talked about this last night on our TV show with Kai Newkirk and Sarah Badawi. And it just seems to me that because so much of our policing originated in slave patrols, and it did, the early police departments in the United States, the early prisons in the United States were slave patrols and slave prisons. In Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, this happened in the Carolinas, right? I think this was South Carolina, as I recall, because Nikki Haley came out and said, I still believe justice will be done. So clearly the Republican governor thinks Slager is guilty. Right. And Georgia and Alabama and, other states, their police departments were basically all slave patrols. And then after the Civil War, they flipped into becoming basically Jim Crow enforcers. And then after the decision in 1898, the separate but equal decision, they flipped into becoming enforcers of segregation. I mean, on the Edmund Pettus Bridge, it was cops who were beating the black people, the protesters. And, there were white people among the group as well, but, principally black people. We've got a problem that, frankly, Europe doesn't have because they saw police power go nuts in the form of the Nazis, and they're not having it anymore. Police in Europe, I lived in Europe for a year. I lived in Germany for a year. I've seen this firsthand. I've interacted with the police. And they are professional. They are courteous. Germany has the same number of killings in 5 years that we have in the United States in a week or two. I mean, it's just mind-boggling. We need a fundamental change in our policing culture. Police should have independent liability insurance and should be independently suable with their insurance company. They should be licensed. There need to be national standards for policing. We need to raise the pay, but we also need to raise the educational requirements so that it becomes a profession like it is in Europe. I realize that, police officers would tell you this is a profession in the United States, and for many it is. And, runs in families, and it's a tradition and all of that, and that's all well and good, but let's clean it up. Let's make it not just a profession or tradition of keeping down people. And yeah, I know, somebody's going to call me up and say, oh, I'm a police officer. I've got police officers in my family, and they're good cops too. If the good cops are not calling out the bad cops, then they're not good cops. It's really what it comes down to.